Welcome back on the news review. Sweetie Abochi has decided to go mum on this one. I was baiting her to see how she would react, and she actually got me there. Do you know what he just reminded me of? There's this player who's basketball player, former NBA player from way back, and he did something that made Kobe Bryant, back then, may his soul rest in peace, get him to be drafted into the Lakers. He was very hard on Kobe, and Kobe at that time was seen to be this, after Michael Jordan and all of that. And at a point they are playing a match and he fakes the ball at Kobe. He's literally face to face with Kobe and he does this. And Kobe doesn't flinch. Like Kobe doesn't. and the temerity for him to have done that. Got Kobe.
I see what you mean.
To bring him by. So you just reminded me of that. But welcome aboard the news review. Time now for us to get into the papers. Right before we do, though, the segment always brought to you courtesy of Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They are offering you, if you're a man, prostate screening for free. If you're a woman, fertility screening for free. You want to check out those, whether you're male or female. What's going on there? Just find out. Reach out to Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic at any of their branches. Accra, they can be located at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronoma Abuehia behind the Angel Educational Complex, Takra Daneaji Estate, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Esiama Nzema. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But just the start of the news review, and we're joined by development economist, senior lecturer, as well at the University for Development Studies, Dr. Michael Ayamga. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Ben. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to see you.
All right. It's good to have you too. Sweetie Abochi is also here. We'll be interacting with you. But before we get there, I just wanted to say this. Life can be very interesting. I'm sure you followed the news about Mawina Treba, Ne Dumo, and everything in between. And I couldn't help it. I really felt some pain. You remember when Dr. John Kuma passed, how I felt about it. And this,
did you know her personally?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay.
I do. And her age and everything in between. It sort of reminded me of my own situation, because losing my father when I was 6, the impact on my mom, and then our eldest brother, 3 boys, our eldest also passing in 2009. Again, my mom. So it was like, wow, double whammy. And for him, I stand corrected. I hear he's lost his wife. Of course, we know of Komla and now Mawina. And it's like, Charlie.
What is happening?
Prof, I don't know whether you're watching, but our sincere condolences to you. No one would wish this on anybody, not even your worst enemy. This is hard.
Our condolences to the family.
This is hard. Anyway, Dr. Ayamga, you have just about 2 minutes. 2 minutes, Dr. Ayamga. And then Sweetie Abochi will take us to the Daily Graphic newspaper. Over to you, Doc.
Yes, I also want to join in with you to wish Prof. Kumla all the best, with a lot of comfort. I can't imagine as a parent growing old and then burying my kid. That is something you cannot imagine how someone is holding on to. So at this point, our prayers are with him and the family.
Right.
We also pray that at least God help all of us. That's what I'll put in this morning. What I want to talk about, I think, is the Vice President finally making a statement on the LGBT plus on ED. I think that I would say it's rather too late, but it shows indecisiveness and lack of leadership. And I would have wished that, just like Parliament have done, there would have been some leadership from the Flagstaff House. I already said I want a law that allows us to be able to discuss this thing dispassionately as researchers and so on. And last week, when I was talking on the issue of the poll by Dankwa and Co. Info Analytics, I did mention the issue of the inclusion of a non-binary indicator of sex. I wanted to show something that, as a researcher, you can make that mistake, and this law would have punished Info Analytics for just that. Sometimes we take these things down from, let's say, more standardized research formats. We use softwares that assume automatic or default positions and add these things there. If we have this law, somebody could have taken Akufo analytics on for promoting LGBTQ values in the country. So that is where some of us are worried about this law. It has nothing to do with the rights, it has nothing to do with our values or here and there. We think that we want something that can allow us to talk about it, learn about the issue, progress. That is how society has progressed. Today, murder is not, people are taking death penalty off the table because people have continued to talk about it. Any law that prevents us from studying and understanding anything is not good for humanity. So that's the position I am coming in today. But the vice president has, as usual, says one thing and does the other. And if people want to watch what he will do, you just have to play his sound bites, the ones we were playing here before this program started. Everything he said has come down, and I don't expect this thing to be different. He has remained largely mute about this thing. He's a trained economist, he's run away from that one, and now presenting amateur staff as a digitalization for vets. And he's also running late on this one, something that he ought to have showed leadership, decisiveness, and his ability to provide.
But Doc, just to interject briefly, and we have little time left so we can get into the papers. Better late than never, they say. People have called, and I agree, it's been a long time people have called on him to say something, but he finally has. And he talks about it, he says, and I'm just looking at what as a Muslim, my view on this matter aligns with the position of my religious faith. The Holy Quran is replete with verses frowning on LGBTQI plus acts. And then he goes on and on. He says, I cannot support that which my religion and indeed all the major religions in Ghana clearly and unequivocally forbid. And he's talking about Christianity, Islam, even traditional religion. And he says, I stand opposed to it now, and I will stand opposed to it as president, inshallah. Does that not suffice? What else do you want from him?
No, he's leading from behind. You better late than never is for followers. When you are a leader, you don't make those decisions. Sometimes people who follow you don't get a chance to do it all over again. And his loud silence on this issue for a very long time, even to the point when Parliament had reached a consensus and it was a bipartisan move, he was still largely quiet, still was moving from church to church, misquoting the Bible instead of leading us on something that was very important for this country going forward. The Vice President of the United States of America and others came before them and made statements. The Vice President never saw the need to make a statement afterwards. No one is saying it should be draconian, but we need decisiveness.
Okay.
I have stated my people are not happy with it. I have stated it. I'm not happy with the law because it's dragnet. I will say that anytime, anywhere. I expected the Vice President to say that. Former President John Dramani Mahama was decisive on this one. Late President John Ivasa so rest in peace, was decisive on this thing. We expect a leader to show forthrightness. It is hindsight. Having seen that the people of Ghana are taking this thing as an issue, it's a topical issue for the elections.
All right.
Just like he said he would grow the economy and hasn't done it. This is a statement I'll take in that light. Based on the history of the Vice President, his posturing and his actions.
All right. Thank you very much. Sweetie, it's interesting because just over the weekend, Scotland has this new hate law, sort of, which also involves trans people, transgender, and all of that. J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series, has been very open in some of these things about biology. You would have heard Rishi Sunak, the UK PM, also talk about biologically, if you're a man, you're a man. Biologically, if you're a woman, you're a woman, and all of that. So it's interesting because in Scotland, they have this hate law that some say goes against the grain of parts of the Constitution. Rishi Sunak has waded in. These conversations will be... They'll be with us. But let's get into the papers.
Yes, but I just want to add that it looks like there are so many differing opinions stemming from this LGBTQ conversation. Yesterday when I spoke to Bridget Jogbenuku, she said this is not the time for Ghanaians to be jailing anyone who chooses to love in a way that's not normal to the rest of us. So, and I saw that there was some backlash saying that you cannot say love is love when we have, cultural practices and all that.
I saw you post, what do you call it? Is it a reel or something?
A clip?
A clip, yes,
Yeah.
on Facebook. I just took a brief look at it and I smiled and moved on. I knew
it. Anyway, but let's get into the paper. On the front page of the Daily, we've obviously dissected that story. Islam opposes LGBTQ. I can't support the practice. That is from Dr. Mahmoud Baumia. And we've just reacted to that story. So let's get into the paper. On page 13, Ghana hosts cashew industry conference. And I want to do this story because I've heard you, wax lyrical about the cashew industry and, the benefits we stand to gain from that. Now, Ghana will be hosting the 6th Council of Ministers Conference on the Consultative International Cashew Council to promote issues related to the cashew value chain. Alongside the conference would be a cashew research dialogue, cashew fair, and an exhibition in Accra. These events will start from Tuesday, April 16th, and end on Saturday. 11 countries with 22 trade and agriculture ministers are expected to attend the conference at the Kempinski Gold Coast Hotel. I cannot say that this is not a welcoming news because from the little I know about cashew, it can even bring us more money than cocoa if we...
Way more.
Way more than...
per ton, per kilo,
yeah.
So on the streets, when you ask for that little bit of cashew, how much does it cost?
Expensive. They have a tiny little bottle where it's sold for about 25 cedis.
No.
Oh,
okay, well, I don't know whether you're
talking about.
talking
Very tiny bottle. Like, have you seen my Yokubi container?
Okay, because cashew is really expensive.
Yeah.
There was a plan way back to do something in the Bono area, what used to be Brongahafo now, split into different parts and all of that. I feel, and that's where, the other day I was talking about Burkina Faso and what they call red gold, strawberry.
Yes.
I feel I don't know what it is with our leaders, but that just as now more than ever, people have learned that you need different sources of income.
Yeah.
It's the same way as a country. You're relying so heavily on cocoa and all of that. Now,
and
because
even
of
that,
that,
have you heard what's happening with the cocoa?
I know. And even farmers feel insulted by the increments based on the world prices over $9,000, close to $10,000. But I'm just saying that we've not diversified enough as a country because cashew, I worked once with an entity, I don't want to sound promotional, that has a 55,000 square meter facility in Pram. I've been to Brazil on the back of this. I know the value chain. I know so much about cashew.
Yeah.
Sometimes, if I had the kind of money, I would go into cashew farming.
You should.
But as a country, how we can't get our act together. Because yes, it is seasonal, but there are ways of going about it. And even instead of some of the imported ones, we could have it all locally driven and and even export. But no.
It is what it is. Dr. Ayamga, do you want to react to this quickly before I get into another story on the Daily Graphic? We have about 22.
Yes, definitely. I'll just bend to lament on our failure to optimize our potentials in cashew. I have done a lot of work on cashew. I used to do some research around it in the Brongahafo region, Savannah region now. Huge potential. I remember even for the World Bank Skills Development Fund, I did do some work for them, and we highlighted the potential of this. It is an issue of non-focus, or sometimes you tend to think that if something is not benefiting some demographics in this country, the agency to develop it is not there. It looks like some people are afraid to have another powerhouse in the crop that beat for cocoa. So the lack of will to invest in the sector to create a strong, robust support system to enhance both production, assembly, and export is mind-boggling. And we can't go around looking for opportunities to develop this country when this huge gold pot is sitting before us. Going forward, I will immediately institute a cashew development fund, talking like the president anyway, that will see to the optimization of the cashew value chain and will pump all the needed resources and manpower into it. It is something that has the potential to revolutionize our agricultural sector, diversify our crop income, so that we don't all depend on cocoa. Anytime something goes wrong with cocoa, then we catch cold. I think that our overdependence on cocoa and now the recent apparent neglect of the sector, coupled with the misfortunes we are having with our petroleum industry, I believe that diversification into some of these things is key for our development, and we need to tackle it. Put in the money there and not be afraid.
Hopefully this cashew industry conference will be the beginning of broadening our horizon and how we can make more money from the industry. But moving on, NPP endorses Farouk Mahama as Yendi parliamentary candidate. I don't know if you're following the story. During the NPP primaries, the two Mahamas, Abiba Shaini Mahama and Farouk Mahama, and a ballot box that was snatched, somebody was beaten, and now all of a sudden, the EC did mention that they'll do a rerun of the elections.
Right.
But now it appears the NPP have endorsed Farouk Mahama as a Yendi parliamentary candidate. We didn't hear anything about a rerun of elections, and there are obviously differences in the figures that were presented.
Well, the last time we had an interaction with Dr. Amachi Boateng and Dr. Asa Asante, one of them also made mention of the fact that, listen, you have to find out what is in the MPP's constitution. And yes, they all call on the EC to conduct these elections for them, but they may not technically be bound by, because they could use some other entity or some other formula. It just says something, though, about the fact that an election was conducted because we see the EC as, primus inter pares when it comes to this. And, well, maybe the NEC, the National Executive Committee of the MPP, knows something we don't, and that is why they've gone ahead.
Endorse him.
We are not members of the party. We don't, so we'll leave them to do what they want.
Dr. Ayamga, quick reactions?
Yes, I remember I was on set the very day of the elections when this incident happened. And put MPP constitution aside, this is a snapshot of our electoral commission conducting elections, a problem arising, and the electoral commission solving it. If this is how the EC is going to solve electoral problems and disputes, if this is how the EC is going to manage elections, then we'll have a big problem in our hands. This is a situation where there was some disagreement about the results of an election. Then party officials came in and declared results of that election on TV. The results of those elections were supposed to be in the custody of the Electoral Commission, who handed those results over to party executives. It's still a huge problem, and we need to address it. There are already concerns that the ruling government has some backdoor channels into the strong room of the Electoral Commission. And when you have an election happening and the party officials arriving and getting the results, when the EC has not declared them, it is problematic. Now, to jump to a point where the party has gone ahead to more or less select a candidate, the Electoral Commission has not told us anything about the elections. We have a big problem. So I'm not worried about what the MP Constitution says. If they want, they shouldn't have even held an election. The people can go unopposed, but they still have to be protected sometimes with the people. I'm thinking that by this singular act, they are probably opening up the Yendi seat, which is a very, very strong MPP seat, to possible snag by the MP, because there is still a whole lot of rancor and dissatisfaction within the ranks of the party. And I believe that it's not everything that you can use internal party mechanism to solve. People have been witness to these kinds of things. Anytime you have these things happen, big names in the elections fall. And I'm going to say that we need to watch out for Yendi. But I think it's a shame on the Electoral Commission for their handling and management of that election. If this is how they are running our elections, then we are in for trouble.
Why is it a shame on them? Yes, they have a report on that, but they gave their verdict and called for a rerun. The party decided not to do that. It's an internal party matter. Why is it a shame on the EC? Why is it a blot on them?
I'm talking of the leadership of the issue. I remember on the day of the issue, as I told you, I was on TV discussing it, local TV in Tamale. At the point that the party was issuing statements here and there, the Electoral Commission was nowhere to be found. So even for the Electoral Commission to show leadership, to demonstrate that it is on top of issues when it mattered most, wasn't there. And key questions have still not been answered. Is it possible for someone on elections day to hijack an election process and declare results and nothing happens? the security agencies didn't do it. They didn't interpret this thing as causing fear and panic or trying to cause civil unrest. If I said this, I probably would be behind bars. But this is a situation where people who are not supposed to have access to election results have come to declare it. Let's wait, God forbid, that on election day, somebody decides to do the same thing that the MPP executives have done. What will happen? They have done this in Yendi, they have gone away with it. There is no condemnation of it. There is no posturing of disapproval from the Electoral Commission. They just keep quiet and say it's the internal party matter. It's a dress rehearsal for what will happen in 2024. And if people can stand on national TV, shortchange and cut the Electoral Commission off an ongoing election and declare results, we ought to be worried about that, not what the Electoral Commission issues after that. So for me, I think that it's a dent on the credibility of the Electoral Commission, one that has been built by a very dedicated individuals like Kojo Afarijan and Charlotte Osei going forward. The current behavior of the Electoral Commission is putting a serious dent on the credibility of the EC. And the earlier we talk about it without any equivocation, the better for us going forward.
Right. We just 7 months more to go into these elections. Let's see how that goes. But there are more stories in the Daily Graphic newspaper. You can grab a copy for yourself, like don't interfere in child trafficking cases. Politicians and chiefs advised. GIFEC donates some 450 visually impaired equipment with ICT to some schools, and many other stories in the Daily Graphic. Let's move on now to the New Finder and just do some quick headlines. And if you want to react to any story, then I'll get into that story. Minister urges Muslims to pray for restoration of peace in Boko. On this penny shrinking issue, 3 grabbed for beating students. Yesterday, Wednesday was it? Benjamin was talking about how... Man, this country. Hospital-acquired infections cost Ghana $1.57 billion annually. 288 voter registration centers ready. That is the EC saying to add 775 more soon. Former president donates to Muslims in Ada. Ghana not granted approval for 14 million seeds for cultivation. These are just some headlines in the New Finder newspaper. And then ECG rejects alleged forex manipulation deal with Fidelity Bank. Do we get into any of these stories, or should we move on to...
Why don't we just get into them, and then when we...
Well, I'm looking at the time. Dr. Ayamga, you have something to say?
Yes, I want to look at the Boko conflict because it hit close to home. That town has become a ghost town.
Okay, so let me just read a bit of that and then to bring our audience up to speed. Mr. Stephen Yakubu, the Upper East Regional Minister, has called on the Muslim community to pray and seek the intervention of Allah to restore lasting peace and stability to Boko and other conflict-affected areas in the region. At least 200 people have lost their lives, while several others have been internally displaced as a result of protracted Boko chieftaincy conflict since its re-emergence in November 2021. The conflict is beginning to spread beyond Boko and its environs to other areas such as Binduri District and Bolgatanga Municipality, posing serious concerns to lives and livelihoods. There's just a little excerpt of the story. Dr. Ayamga, you were saying?
Yeah, I said we need to address this issue because Boko was once a thriving economic hub of this country, being strategically positioned between us and our Francophone neighbors. So this conflict that has turned the town into a ghost town is worrying. I'm not trying to dispel this. I'm a Christian, charismatic, a tongue-speaking Christian, so I believe in prayer a lot. But you see, the regional minister, and for that matter, this government, has been at the forefront of escalating that conflict. Sometimes subtly behind declared positions behind some groups. And it is this kind of inaction or apparent approval of some actions that has fueled this conflict and driven it out of proportion, and it's almost now an impossibility. So it is not God, it is human beings, it is those of them who wield authority, who should be decisive in their actions, are using this conflict for political patronage. playing politics with the lives of people and with the peace in this country. So you can't go on the day of the Eid al-Fitr and be calling for Muslims to pray. This is not an issue of prayer. It is an issue of weak leadership, complicit leadership, and a desire to weaponize some small ethnic divide for political gain. It is politicians who provide the weapons. People who should be sending
we cannot. Can you confirm that politicians? I mean, that's a claim that.
You see, from where I sit, I don't have to be mentioning names and be confirming. I believe that is the job of you, the journalist. But as a researcher, I know what I'm saying. Okay. As having people from who work under me, I know what I'm saying. And it has been there for a very, very long time. The conflict only takes a very serious dimension when some people are in power. You need to ask that question. And I'm not going to mince words about this. Okay. Some people have to be ashamed of themselves. We believe that, yes, people will fight from time to time. But when the leadership or the dispensation of the day shows forthrightness, is decisive in what it does, you don't have things escalating to this level. To the point that for several years now, Boku is now a ghost town. And the people are in the urban areas. Many of them are in the capital, Bogotá. They are agriculturists. The only thing they know is farm. They don't have land there. So you can guess what they are doing. I think that the minister ought to do better to stop saying one thing in public and believing and supporting another thing. That's what they have been doing all over. Their language behind the scenes in the matter. And I will say, no evidence. I can't have smoking gun that can lead to the prosecution of anyone. But what I've said is, who the cap fits, let him wear it. And they know who it fits.
All right, Doc.
All right, so let's get into other newspapers very quickly. I'm going to be very quick with this, Doc, and then I'll give you the opportunity of lumping your thoughts together on one or two of those issues. The Ghanaian Times, performance tracker, government executes over 13,000 projects so far. Minister of Works and Housing announces. It's been interesting, this performance tracker. Have you taken a look at some of the...
We did some analysis. Our correspondent in Ashanti region went to the Agogo factories, and most of these projects listed as completed are nowhere near even 50% complete. Some of the structures is just a foundation. And
I think this performance tracker could be problematic for government. I'll leave it at that. Okay. And today I'll get into some of what the performance tracker says in respect of some crucial issues. Among other things I'm going to look at. Fetish priest in custody for spreading false information, and then fire outbreak at Jamestown. So this fetish priest, by the way, the Kwadasu Circuit Court has remanded in prison custody a self-acclaimed fetish priest for allegedly publishing false information about the VIP Joan transport company. Emmanuel Frimpong, 24, also known as Bayfo, was said to have published the information via TikTok to allege that drivers of VIP were engaged in ritual expeditions. And his plea to a charge of publishing false information was not taken under the Electronic Communication Act. It's interesting because the book I'm reading this morning touches on some of these matters. But anyway, then 500 structures burnt, hundreds rendered homeless. Over 500 wooden structures were destroyed in a fire outbreak at a slum at Jamestown in Accra on Tuesday. Hundreds of people rendered homeless as a result. Items destroyed included personal effects, fridges, and fish. No casualty was recorded. But why am I not surprised by this? Every year, without fail, once we have these systems, I don't want to categorize any place as a slum or a shanty town, but once we have the systems or lack of systems we do, the markets and such places constantly will, because look at the congestion, look at the gadgets people are using, the gas and everything. It is mind-boggling. So we'll keep talking about these things. The Daily Guide says, Ejisu by-election, EC opens nominations, Bawumia rejects LGBTQ+, shun divisiveness, and Nana tells Ghanaians. Airport staff interdicted over cocaine smuggling. I'll just do that story briefly. So the Ghana Airports Company Limited has interdicted some staff following a recent cocaine smuggling incident at the Kotoka International Airport. The decision was contained in a statement released by the GACL following the interception of a significant quantity of illegal drugs at Brussels Airport in Belgium. According to reports, the cocaine was smuggled through KIA aboard the Moroccan national carrier Royal Air Maroc with the assistance of a GACL staff member on March 23, 2024. A Dutch national, Bianca, was apprehended at Brussels Airport with 8.5 kilograms of suspected cocaine believed to have been transported through KIA on the said date. You know what this does to our reputation as a country. And finally, the Ghanaian publisher, transport fare increase shut down. But the question is, for how long will they be able to hold on? That's the question. Doc, those are my papers. You can pick one, maximum two issues to reflect on.
Yes.
And by the way, we have 2 minutes, and we have to go. 2 minutes. Let's go.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. I'll say that this issue of cocaine worries me a lot. But cocaine has gotten missing at the police headquarters before. A whole ship load of seized cocaine has gotten missing here. We have it wearing its face again in through TI. And they only happen if you want to connect the dots. So when we are facing very serious economic crisis and then we need all the foreign cash. So I'm not surprised that the staff is behind it. If you dig deeper and you are able to go in, you realize that some big kingpins somewhere is making it. It just doesn't happen overnight that the staff at the TIA starts to do something. The problem is that these things never see the light of the day. Even if they catch people and send them to court overnight, they turn into because somebody power has the ability to change these things. So I would say it's an embarrassment. It's the true state of who we are, what we do. Once in a while they catch them, and when they catch them, we let them go. You are here, you're a journalist, you know very, very well. This story is going to go waste. I also want to just in a minute talk about the issue of the performance tracking and the claim to have completed so many projects. I think it is a serious disservice to the people of this country. Sometimes just admit that the thing is not there, you haven't done it, and we can go forward. To normally compile books and reports like this when the supposed beneficiaries and those who are suffering under the brunt of these things get nothing. It's not only politics, but it's beginning to become a disservice and inhumane to the people of this country. Just to look good, I think that it is a crime to be doing these things. When a project is not finished and someone who has sworn the oath to treat this country with all the dignity it deserves says this, then we have to be worried as a nation. It's election year and these things are worrying for me, Ben.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, Dr. Ayamga. Any final thoughts?
Well, the GACL released a statement assuring the public that the airport is still secure and able to function, and so no one should panic on the back of this cocaine story. So maybe that's something to point out. Yeah. But that's it from me.
Yes, I saw this come through. Let's quickly get there and get it sewed up. Linda Dorina Sean sent me this one. She says, a happy new year and blessed birthday to Mrs. Ursula Fiajo, a.k.a. you dear of Tema Community 4. Segco Flats from your husband, children, mother, siblings, nieces, and nephews. We love you. That's Mrs. Ursula Fiajo, a.k.a. you dear. Anyway, and that's it. That's how we're going to sew it up. Dr. Ayamga, thank you so much for having joined the conversation. We wish you the best of the day, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Right. And that is development economist and senior lecturer at the University for Development Studies, Dr. Michael Ayamga. Before we get into sports and that thrashing of Liverpool by Atalanta, all of that on the international front, but Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helping us bring you this segment. They're offering you prostate screening for free if you're a man, fertility screening for free if you're a woman. Reach out to them. Their branches here in Accra at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronum, Abuehia behind the Angel Educational Complex, Takra Dianaji State Tema, Community 22, Tichiman Hanswa, and Esiaman Zema. You can reach them on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease, bringing us to the end of the news review. Sports is up next Tuesday.